We begin today the Gemara on Daf Tzadik Vav Amud Beis, 2 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, Amalei Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak. So Rashi here explains that because the Gemara before spoke about the time of the Churban of the first Beis HaMikdash, one of the Psukim mentioned there was to explain that in that time there was no tzaddikim or very little tzaddikim. So here the Gemara continues and says so on, b'negei to the time when Mashiach will come, it'll also be a time period where there'll be very little tzaddikim and truth will be lacking in the world. Amalei Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak. Rav Nachman says to Rav Yitzchak, Mi shmielach emes asi bar nafli. Did you hear when Bar Nafli, the son of the one that falls, that's a literal translation, when he comes? Amalei, so Rav Yitzchak says, Man Bar Nafli, who are you talking about? Who's Bar Nafli? Amalei, Mashiach, I'm talking about Mashiach. So he asks him, Mashiach Bar Nafli Kareslei? You refer to Mashiach as the one that comes from the one that fell? Amalei in. So he says, yes, the reason is the Chsiv, the Pasuk says, Bayayim Ahu, on that day, Mashiach comes, Akim, I will lift up again as Sukkahs David Anefeles. The Sukkahs David, which refers to the Beis HaMikdash, or the Melucha of David HaMelech, that fell. So therefore Mashiach, that comes from David, that his Melucha fell, is called the Bar Nafli. So again, his question was, do you know when he's coming? Amalei, so he answered him, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yechanan. This is what Rabbi Yechanan said, that Dorshu ben David ba, the generation that Mashiach comes by, in that generation, Talmidei Chachamim Mismatim. The Talmidei Chacham will be very little. Va'ashar, and the remnant, the remainder, whoever will be there, Einayim Kolois B'Yogoyim Va'anocha, their eyes will be will worn out from all the moaning and groaning, Vitzaris Rabbis, and many of the troubles that will be, Oxeris Kashis, and difficult decrees, Mischatshais, will constantly be renewed. Ad Sha'arishayna Pakuda Shniyam Ameres Love. When the first Gzeira ends, the next Gzeira will be quick to come. That's the description of that time period that will be when Mashiach will come. Tan Rabbanan in Abraisa we learned a different description. Shavua Sheben David Ba. The cycle of Shemitah, meaning the period of the 7 years that will be when Mashiach will come. So it'll be as follows. Again, Shavua Sheben David Ba Boy. Shana Rishayna, in the first year of this 7 years, Miskaya Mikrazeh, the following pasuk will be fulfilled. Vimtarti al ir achas, there'll be rain in one place. But val ir achas lo yamtir. In another place there won't be any rain, which means that in one place there will be a hunger, and in another place there will be a lot of food. Shniya, the second of the 7 years, chitzei rav mishtalchim. The arrows of hunger will be sent, which means that it'll be a hunger, but not such a great hunger, but it'll be a hunger. And then shlishis, the third year, rav gadol. It'll be a great hunger. And umesim, anoshim, noshim, v'taf. Chsidim v'anshe Maise, men, women, and children, and even Chsidim and Anshe Maise will also die. And the Torah mishtakachas, and Torah will be forgotten milamdeh from those that learn Torah because they won't have what to eat. But Revi'es, then when it comes the fourth of the 7 years, Soiva ve'ene Soiva, it'll begin to be more ready to eat. It'll be what to be satisfied from, but not a lot. It'll still be ve'ene Soiva. V'chamishis, when it'll come to the 5th year, Soiva Godel, then it'll be already a lot of food to eat, and v'oichlin, v'sheisen, v'smeichin, they'll be able to eat and drink and be happy, and then v'toireh chezeres l'lim deha, and Torah will come back to those that are learning Torah. V'shishis, in the 6th year, kailois, there'll be great sounds. Either there'll be just people will be saying and talking about the fact that Mashiach is coming, or Rashi says it'll be the sound of the Shofar Gadol, Kab Shofar Gadol. And then B'Shvius, in the 7th year, Mulchames, there'll be wars between the Oivdei Kechavim, the Goyim, and the Yidden, and B'Matzah Shvius, and then in the end of Shemitah, meaning in the 8th year really, Ben David Ba. That's when Mashiach will come. Rav Yosef said about this, Hakam Shvius, the Hava came. There were many times that you had this happening in the cycle of the 7 years of the Shemitah, that it happened, that there was hunger, and there was also good years. V'lo yasa, and Mashiach didn't come. Amar Abaye, so Abaye said, B'shishis kailos, but in the 6th year, that there should be the sounds about the coming of Mashiach. And B'shvius, Mulchames, in the 7th year, that there should be wars. Mi haven't, did that happen? Yeah, there was years that you had hunger years, and then you had good years, but you didn't have the additional things described here. And v'oid, additionally, he said to Rav Yosef, Kisidron miyave, did it happen exactly in the order, the way it was described here, how it's going to happen when Mashiach comes? Okay, now the Gemara here in this Gerse here brings this pasuk where it says, Asher cherfu oivecha Hashem, that the enemies, they blaspheme against Hashem. And they blaspheme in the times of the end of Mashiach. Now Rashi here says that the Gemara doesn't darshan anything from this pasuk, but it brings here this pasuk because the Gemara in the end of Saita brings this pasuk to say that B'ikvis Mashiach chutzpah yazge, that when times when before Mashiach comes, there will be a lot of chutzpah in the world, and that's what the Gemara is bringing here this pasuk for. So Ikvis Mashiach refers to at the end of times before Mashiach comes. And I hear the Gemara is going to continue bringing different things about what will be in the time before Mashiach comes. So Tanya Nebraisa, we learned Rabbi Yehuda says, Dersha ben David ba, the generation that Mashiach comes by Beis Havad, Hiel Iznus, the place where the Chachamim used to come and gather together to learn Torah there, it'll become a place of gathering for Znus, for immorality. Va'Galil Yechrav, the Galil, the north in Eretz Yisrael will be destroyed. Va'Gavlon Yesham, and Gavlon, which is a name of a place, will be desolate. Va'Anshe Gvul, the people of the borders of Eretz Yisrael, people that live in Eretz Yisrael, Yisayvavu Me'ir Le'ir, will be going around from city to city, V'lo Yechanenu, and nobody will show them any grace. That's one gersa. Another gersa Rashi brings Anshe Gozes, which refers to the people of the Sanhedrin, will be just walking around from city to city, they won't have food and nobody will look at them. And v'chachmas ha-seifrim, the wisdom of the seifrim, of the great scholars, tisrach, will be spoiled. V'yirei chet, and those that are fearing from a sin, yim asu, will be despised. Upnei adoir kipnei kelev, and the face of the people of the generation will be like the face of a dog. Ashi says either it means in the literal sense, or it means like a dog, that dogs are not embarrassed from one another. There's a famous pshat that the Welt says that Pnei Adok Pnei Kelev is referring to the leaders of the generation, just like a person that's walking his dog, and it looks like the dog is going ahead and he's the one in charge. But then when you come to a fork in the road, the dog looks back to see where the owner that's taking him wants to go. So to the leaders of the generation in this time period will be like a dog that they walk ahead. They're, so to speak, the leaders, but they look back to see what are the people saying. They don't really lead. They just respond to what people are saying about them. It's a pshat the Welt says. Now, va'emes nederes, and also truth will be lacking. Shenem, as the pasuk says, vatihi emes nederes, that the truth will be lacking in the world. Mai vatihi emes nederes. Amr de Beirav, so they said by the yeshiva of Rav, Melamed, his teachers, Shenasis Adorim Vailachesla, that the people of truth will become like groups of people that will just go away, that will not be anymore. And what does it mean in the continuation of the pasuk where it says Visar Meira, the one that stays away from bad, Mishtailel, will be like a crazy person. So Amr de Beirav Shila, by Rab Shila they said, Kol Misha Sar Meira. In this time period, whoever will turn away from bad, he'll look like a fool by people. People will mock him. It'll be like a shtus in people's eyes. Now, since the Gemara here brought this thing of emes naderes, that there'll be no truth, so the Gemara brings something in connection to this. Amar Rava said, in the beginning I would think that leke kushta balma, that there's no person in the world that speaks only truth all the time. Then Amalei Yahumir Rabbanan, one of the Rabbanan told me, Rav Tovus Shmei, his name is Rav Tovus, V'amri lo Rav Tivyaimi Shmei, or his name is Rav Tivyaimi, Di'i have yavele kol chalali da'alma, that if he would give me anything that exists in the entire world, la have mishane b'dibure, he'd never change anything from the absolute truth. But nevertheless, he said the following story. Zimnuchade ikli lahu asra. He once came to this place for kushta shmei. The name of the place was truth. And the reason is because the people here in this place always spoke only the truth of Olav Mishane b'diburayu. They never said anything not deviated from the absolute truth. And v'le'avamayis inish mihasam b'lei zimne. No one there in this city died before his time. So Nesivi Yitzim Minhain, he says, I got married to a woman from this place. And I had 2 sons from her. And he was living here in this place called Kushta. One day, his wife was taking a shower. She was washing her head. A neighbor came, she knocked on the door. So Rav Tivyaimi said, I thought to myself, it's not exactly appropriate to come and say what his wife is doing now that she's taking a shower. So when she asked, where is she here? So he responded and said, he's not here. And why was he saying this? He was saying this out of tznius, modesty. But nevertheless, because he said something that deviated from the truth, what happened is, his 2 sons passed away. So when that happened, also in Shida Asre, the people of the place came, lekameh to him, and they said, Amrullah, they said to him, my hi, what happened? Why did your two sons pass away? They knew that in this place, everyone lives their full years because they never deviated from the truth. Amalahu, so he told them, this is what happened. He told them why he said what he said, and this is what caused it. Amrullah, so the people of the place told him, we beg from you, puk ma'asrin, go away from our place, and don't instigate and bring death on these people of this city. This is this place of Kushta that they spoke only absolute truth. Okay, now going back to the time period when Mashiach comes, Tanya, we learned Nabrai said, Rab Neiroi said, Doresh ben David ba, the generation that Mashiach comes in, by Na'arim Yalbinu Pneis Kainim. The young will embarrass the old. Uz Kainim Yamdu Lifnei Na'arim. And the old will get up for the young, will give honor to the young. Ubas Kama Be'ima. A daughter will get up against her mother to embarrass her mother. And V'kala B'chamaisa, a daughter-in-law against the mother-in-law. The face of the people of the generation will be like a dog, as mentioned before. And the Eina ben misbayish me'aviv. And a son will have no embarrassment of the father. Adarabi, he'll embarrass his father. Tanya and Abraisa, we learned Rab Nechemya says, Dorsha ben David ba, the generation that Mashiach comes by in it, ha'azus tarbe. The azus, audacity or chutzpah will be a lot, will be in all the time. V'hayoiker ya'avis. And the yoiker, which means that proper honor will be crooked, will not be the way it's supposed to be. In other words, they're not going to be mechabed one or another the way it should be. Or the Rashi says it refers to what it says before, that the one that gets the honor will not be the way it's supposed to. The old won't get the honor, the young will be honored by the ones that are old. The vineyards will produce good grapes, but nevertheless, but the wine will still be expensive. And the reason for this is because there'll be grapes, but there won't be a bracha on the fruits, and therefore it'll still be expensive. It's one pshat. Another pshat Rashi says is because everybody's going to be drinking and getting drunk, so therefore it'll be expensive. V'nepcha kol malchus leminus, and all of the kingdom, all the governments that will be living in will be completely heretics. Ve'ein techache, and there's nobody to say any musa, to rebuke. Says the Gemara Mesayel Rabbi Yitzchak. This last point is what Rabbi Yitzchak said. Rabbi Yitzchak, Ein ben David ba, Mashiach doesn't come ad shetisapech kol amalchus leminus, until all of the governments will be heretics. Amar Rave said about this, Maikra, what is the pasuk where we see a source for this? It says, Kuloi hafach lavan toirhu. By the Negayim, when the whole body of the person changes and it becomes all white, the nega covers his entire body, toirhu, then it's pure. Similar here, when there's a minus in the world, so then it's not yet the time of Mashiach. But when everything turns into minus, so you may think that that's actually worse, but no, that's actually a sign that toirhu, that this is when Mashiach is coming. Right, it says, I think the Maharal, the Mefarshim say here that when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a new revelation, a new world order. So before you transfer from one to another, it has to be a complete, you have to abolish completely what was before, and therefore the world will degenerate to such a level, and only then will they come and renew and bring Mashiach, and everything will be completely fresh and new. Okay, we had already the fulfillment of the tzaddis and all the negative things, daiva haiser, from what the Gemara says there, and we're more than ready for Mashiach to come.
Amen.
Okay, there's more here. We're not, 1 second, let's see more here. Tan Rabbanan, the Braisa says, Ki yodin Hashem ame v'geimer. Hashem will judge his people. Ki yireh, he will see, ki ozlas yad, that the hand goes away. The efes otzer v'ozav, there is nobody to come and help Yidden. What does this pasuk mean? So there's a few pshatim here. One is, Ein ben David ba at sheyibra Messiris. Mashiach doesn't come until there will be many of informants, those that will inform to the government. That's what it means, ozlas yad, that those will give over to the government. Davarach, another pshat, at sheismatu hatalmidim, that those that are, the talmidim will be less. Those that are mechazik the talmidim, there'll be nobody, efes atzav, nobody to be mechazik the talmidim that are learning Torah. Davarach, another pshat, at shetichle prutim in akis, there'll be no money in the pocket. That's what it means, that ozlas yad, you won't have anything to put your hand into your pocket to find money. Davarach, another pshat, at sheyisyashu min agola. Mashiach only comes when people will give up on redemption. Shanema, that's what the pasuk here means when it says ve'efes otzur v'ozav, that people will say there's no hope Efes, there's nothing, no hope for Atzabaza, for anyone to come and help us, Kaviyachol. Ein Soimich V'Oizel Yisrael, that there's nobody here that's helping Yidden. Ki had Rab Zayde, and this is what Rab Zayde said. Ki have a mashkech Rabbanon, the Maski Bey, when he saw that the Rabbanon were talking about the coming of Mashiach, to know when he's coming, that's what Rashi says, so then he would say to them, Amaluhu b'matuse, ba'ina minaychu, I beg you, don't cause Mashiach to be distanced even more. Because the Tanina, we learned that Gimel, Boim, Behesachadas, there are three that come when you don't pay attention at all to it. And Elohein, the three are Mashiach, a Metzia, when someone loses something and he's losing from a Metzia, he finds it suddenly out of the blue, and Va'akrov, and a scorpion that comes to bite a person also comes suddenly. So therefore he says, don't talk about Mashiach. So this is brought, the Alter Rebbe brings this in Tanya and Igeres HaKedesh, and it's brought in many places, that what's the taich of Mashiach Ba Besachadas? What it means is that the level of Mashiach is higher than Tam V'Das. It's higher than Das. It's something that's beyond our imagination, or beyond what we could understand. So it's referring to the level of Mashiach. And then the Rebbe also spoke about this many times, and here the taich of why is these three together, Mashiach, Metzia, and Akrav. So one of the pshatim the Rebbe said is that the whole inyan of Mashiach is to take an akrav. The akrav, when it bites, it's cold. That's what it says about the difference between the akrav and the snake. And the biggest level of krirus, which is the akrav, the lowest klippa of Amalek in the world, the whole inyan of Mashiach is to transform that akrav into a metzia. What's the metzia? It says by David HaMelech, Matzasi David Avdi, that the metzia of Mashiach, which comes Behesach Hadas, which is Lamayla Mitam V'Das, that's going to be the accomplishment of the coming of Mashiach. Rav Ketine said, Shital Vishni Hava Alma. The world exists for 6,000 years. And then V'chad, another 1,000 years, the 7th millennium, Charuv, will be a time of destruction, or the world will be desolate. Shenem, as the Pasuk says, V'niskav Hashem Levadoi, that on that day the Eibishter himself will be exalted. It's Eibishter himself on that day. And that day refers to 1,000 years. Abai says that this time period will be Trecharov. It will be 2,000 years. Shanem, as the pasuk says, Yichayenu, he will give us life miyoymayim, from these 2 days, which refers to 2,000 years, and then Bayom Ashlishi Yikimenu V'Nichya. Then the third day, after these 2,000 years, then Yikimenu V'Nichya, the world will be new again, Lefanov, in front of Hashem. Tanya Kvasei de Rav Ketina, we learned like Rav Ketina said, because it says Kishem Shashvis Mishametes Shona Achas L'Zayin Shonim, just like by Shemitah. So the 7th year comes 1 year after 6 years. Kacha'ila Mishamet Elev Shonim L'Shivas Alofim Shona. So too, the years of the world will be 6,000 years, and then 1,000 years when the world will be desolate. Shanem, as the pasuk says, "V'nitzkav Hashem levadei b'yoymahu," so it says "yoim," 1 day, which refers to 1,000 years, and "v'oimer," another pasuk where it says "mizmar shir liyoyim Shabbos," yoim shekulei Shabbos. It'll be 1 day, 1,000 years, which will be all Shabbos. And "v'oimer," another pasuk, "ki elef shanim beinecha ki yoim esmol ki yaver." By the Eibishter, 1 day is 1,000 years, and therefore on these pasukim where it says "yoim," "biyoim," and "yoim," it refers to that 1,000 years, like Rav Ketina said. This concept of the Chat Charov or Trei Charov that the Gemara speaks about over here refers to a time period. It's brought in my modern where it speaks about this inyan. It means that the world is going to be in a completely higher level that will be called Charov. In other words, the Metzias, the limitation of the world as we know it today, will be Charav. The Gemara before here in Chelek brought that it will be a time period where the world will be filled with water and the tzaddikim will be hovering above the water with wings. Meaning that it'll be a time period where it'll be all godly revelation. It'll be a different kind of time period. That's what it's talking about. And there's also a sikha in Chelik Zayin, Parshas B'Chukaisai, where the Rebbe explains by Riches what the meaning of this machlekes between Abaye and Rav Ketina is, whether it'll be Chat Charov or Trei Charov, what's the significance of 1,000 years, 2,000 years. And there the Rebbe actually points out that Rav Ketina, which the Gemara proves that his opinion is right, we pass like Rav Ketina, it'll be 1,000 years, is actually on a higher level, where it's all happening in 1,000 years. There's different degrees of aliyas that we're coming to through this charov, and when it's all included in 1,000 years, it's because there's a great godly revelation, all the way to Atzmus Mamish, where it's all included in 1,000 years. The Rebbe explains it, Barichis there in that sikha. Tana de Eliyahu, it was taught by Eliyahu that Sheishes Alofim Shana Hava Alma, the world exists for 6,000 years. Now, Shnei Alofim Toyu. 2,000 years is a time period of Toyu, because this is before the Eibishter gives the Torah. And Rashi here says, and that is until Avram was 52 years old, that's 2,000 years. that the world existed before the Eibishter gave Torah. That's the cheshbon that it comes out if you make the cheshbon from the beginning of creation until when Avram was 52 years old. And that's when Avram Avinu began Sanefesh Hashasu B'Charan. He began teaching Yidden about the people, that is, about the Eibishter. So that's the Shnei Alofim Tayu. Then Shnei Alofim Torah. There's 2,000 years from that when Avram began Sanefesh Hashasu, which was the preparation for Matan Torah. This is the 2,000 years, a period of Torah. Now Rashi here makes a cheshbon barichis regarding this time period of the 2,000 years of Torah, that it starts from when Avram is 52 years old, and from then until Yitzchak is born. Yitzchak is born when Avram Avinu is 100 years old. You have 48 years, and then from then until Yaakov is born. Yaakov is born when Yitzchak is 60 years old, so that's 108 years, and then you have another 130 years when Yaakov went down to Mitzrayim, so together that's 208 and 238 years, and then the 210 years that Yidden were in Mitzrayim, so that's Tov Mem Ches. That's what we know. It always says that Matan Torah was Beis Alofim Tov Mem Ches, 248 years after 2,000 years. And then afterwards, Yidden came out of Mitzrayim. When was the first Beis HaMikdash built? 480 years after the Yidden came out of Mitzrayim. Rashi brings a pasuk in Malachim for this. And then the Beis HaMikdash itself stood for 410 years. And then 70 years of Golus Bavel. And then 420 years for the second Beis HaMikdash. So together, this is 2,000 years minus 172 years. That's what Rashi says. That's the cheshbon here. And then that's when the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. That's the end of this tkufa of Shnei Alofim Torah. Even though it's not exact, it's missing 172 years, but this is what the Gemara is referring to over here. The end of the time when the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And then after that begins Shnei Alofim Yomei Mashiach, the period of 2,000 years, which is a period of the time of Mashiach. Now, if this is the time of the period of Mashiach, so then why isn't Mashiach here yet? With our sins, with our Avedas, Sharabu, Yatsu Mehem Mashiyatsu. All the years that have already came from this period of 2,000 years has already passed, and Mashiach did not yet come because of Avedas. So here, this is the sugya that begins the Gemara discussing the various different time periods, the kitzin that there are for when Mashiach comes. So Amalei Eliyahu le Rav Yehuda achod Rav Salah Chasida. Eliyahu said to Rav Yehuda, the brother of Rav Salah Chasida. So Eina Ilam Pachis mi Shmeinim v'Chamisha Yovlis, that the world doesn't exist less than 85 Yovlis, which is 4,200 years. U'b'Yovel ha'achrein, and in the last Yovel of this period of 4,200 years, Ben David ba. That's when Mashiach comes. This is what Eliyahu Navi said. Amalei, so he asked Eliyahu, b'tchilasai ay b'seifai. In the beginning of that last period of Yovel, a Yovel is a period of 50 years. In the beginning of that Yovel or in the end of it? Amalei eini yedeya. Eliyahu says, I don't know. Kala ay eina kala. That time period of the Yovel, will it end? Meaning Mashiach will come after that Yovel, or not after the Yovel, but at the end of that Yovel, of that period of 4,200 years. Amalei eini yedeya. Mashiach says, I don't know. Eliyahu that is. Eliyahu says, I don't know. Some of Farshim say that it's not that Eliyahu didn't know, but he says that he doesn't know because it depends on the Yidden, whether it will be Zeiche for Mashiach to come or not. Rav Ashi Amar, Hachi Amalei. Rav Ashi says that what he said was a little different. Ad Hacha Loit Tistaki. Until this time period, there's no reason to wait for Mashiach. Till this Yovel Achna of this time period. From here, going forward, this Tachile. You should await his coming. Shalach le Rav Chana bar Tachlif le Rav Yosef. So he sent to Rav Chana bar Tachlif, said to Rav Yosef the following, that Mitzasti Adam Echad, I found a person, Ubiyadoi Megillah Achas, he had a scroll, Ksuva Ashuris Veloshin Kaidish, and it's written in the Ksav Ashuri, which is the Ksav that we write today, and it's Sefer Torah, and it was written in Loshin Kaidish, and it had something written in it. And I asked him, Zumi Nayalach, where did you find the scroll? So Amali told me, L'chayalois shel Reimi Niskarti, I was hired by the army of the Romans, Uben Ginzei Reimi Mitzasiya, and I found it amongst the treasures of the Romans. On Kosuv Ba, and it says in this scroll that La'achad Dalid, Alofim, Umasayim, V'tishim, Ve'echad Shana Libriyasa Shalaylam, after 4,291 years from creation of the world, Ha'elam Yitain, the world will become destroyed, will become desolate. And then after this, or the world will change. And what will happen then? Mehen Mulchamis, from those years going forward, there'll be time periods of wars, and that's Muhammad's Taninim, actually, Muhammad's of the fish. That's what Rashi says. But other Mefarshim say that this Muhammad of the fish really is just a mashal. It refers to big wars that will be in the world. Mehen Muhammad is Gog and Magog, and from those years will also be the wars of Gog and Magog, and then Vashar Yemaisa Mashiach. And then afterwards will be the time of Mashiach, when the Shibud over Yidden will be nullified, and Mashiach will come. And the Eibusha will not renew his world, the Eilam Chadash that it says, that the Eibusha will create, after the time period of 7,000 years, going back to the point we said before, that there will be 6,000 years, and then the seventh, after the 7,000, Chad Charuv, then the world will be new. Ravache Berei Rava says that before it brought that it was 4,291 years. So Ravache Berei Rava says no, La'acha Chameshes Alafim Shana Itmar. What it said was after a period of 5,000 years. Then will be the wars and so on that it explained here. Tanya Rav Nosson Naim and Abraisi, we learned this is all about explaining again the kitzin, time periods of Mashiach coming. So Rav Nosson said Mikra Zeh, the following pasuk that it says in Chavakuk, is Neikev v'yered ad atahim. It pierces and it goes to the depths, which means that this is a pasuk that it speaks about the time of a Mashiach comes, but you can't, it goes like all the way to the depths, meaning you can't explain and understand when this is, and therefore you should always await the coming of Mashiach. The pasuk says, Ki oid chazain, there was another vision for Chavakuk, lamayit, for the time period, vayifach lekates, or vayafeach lekates, that the Eibusha spoke about the end of time, v'lo yechaziv, and he will not lie, im yisma meya. If it is holding up and Mashiach is not coming, chak kaloi. You should wait for him, ki bo yavoi v'lo ya'achir. He will end up coming and he will not delay. So what do we learn from this pasuk? Like Rabbi Seinu, not like our teachers, shahayu darshem, that they would darshan a kates. What's the kates that they said? That the pasuk says in the end of Daniel, that ad idon, idonin, uplag idon. That the time is until the time of idon, and then it says idonin, a plural term, and then it says plag idon, half of that time. What is this referring to? So Rashi says, it refers to the time of Yidden being in Mitzrayim. So it says Golus Mitzrayim. The Gzeir of Bris Ben Absalom was 400 years, even though Yidden were only there 210 years, but it's 400 years. So that's Idon, 400 years. Idonin is twice that, so that's 800 years. So that's 1,200 years. And then Plag Idon, add another half of 400 years, that's another 200 years, which means that the Ketz of Mashiach coming is after 1,400 years. That's one Ketz. So the Gemara is saying, don't follow this Ketz. And v'loy kerab simloi, and also not like what Rab Simloi would darshan, shahaya dairish, so he darshan the pasuk in Tillim where it says, achaltem lechem dima. You gave them to eat bread with tears, and vatashkemoi, you gave them to drink, or you gave them to eat, and you gave them to drink, b'dmoi is shalish, with many tears. So what is the lashon of the pasuk here talking about when it says b'dmoi is shalish? What it's saying is that the galus that the Yidden experienced in the past is only a shalish, a third of the time of galus that we're in now. So if Yidden in the past were in Galus for 400 years, Mitzrayim, and 70 years of Galus Bavel, that's only a third of the time of the Galus that we're in now. So therefore what it means is that if you take 470 and times 3, so that will mean that the end of the time of the Galus is 1,410 years. That was the case that Absimloi said. And also like Rabbi Kiva Shoyadairish, and not like Rabbi Kiva that Darshan had said, Oid achas ma'athi. Rabbi Kiva lived right after the time of the Churban of the second Beis HaMikdash, and he said, a little bit of time, that va'ani marish es hashamayim v'sa'aretz, and I will bring a great commotion in heaven and earth, and then it will be the time when Mashiach will come. So Mashiach, Rabbi Kiva lived in the time after the Churban, and that was the time period when Ben Kaziba, so he rebelled against the Romans, and the Gemara brought the story before about Ben Kaziba, that he ruled over the Yidden then for 2.5 years. And Rabbi Kiva said in that time period that he is Mashiach and Mashiach will come then. And therefore he said, there will be a little time after the Churban of the second Beis HaMikdash and then Mashiach will come. So the Gemara says here that the pshat of this pasuk is also not like Rabbi Kiva darshaned. Rather, Ella, what is the pshat of this last pasuk here? Ella, what it's talking about when it said Oid achas ma'ati, it's not talking about the time period after the Churban of the second Beis HaMikdash. Ella, what it's saying is Malchus Rishain Shivim Shana. This is in the end of the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, so there will be another kingdom. So that first kingdom that will be, which refers to the kingdom of the Chashmonaim, their kingdom is 70 years. Malchus Shniya, then there'll be another kingdom after this, which is the kingdom of Hordis, will be Chamishim Mishtayim. It'll be 52 years. So Rashi says even though the kingdom of the Chashmonaim was more than 70 years, but nevertheless it was 103 years, but nevertheless that was the Iker Melucha that they had. And then Malchus ben Kuziba, then was the kingdom of Ben Kuziba, which was only Shtei Shana Momechza, for 2.5 years. That's what the pasuk is talking about. So now then, what does it mean when the pasuk here says v'yafeyach lekates, that he speaks about the kates, and v'lo yachazav, and he will not lie? So Amar Rab Shmuel bar Nachmeni, Amar Rab Yonasan, teivach atzman shel mechashvei kitzin, that the bones of those that make these calculations about the cats, the teipach atzman. I'm not sure exactly how to translate it. Teipach. That means they should be cursed. You should not calculate any of these kitzin.
Burnt and dried out.
Okay, they should be burnt and dried out. So you should not make any of these kitzin. Why? Because it has a bad result. Because shahayu oimrim, they would say ki mishigia esak kates. The time of the kates comes v'loy ba, and he didn't come in that time period. So shuvei ba. So people don't believe anymore that Mashiach will come. Rather, you should always await his coming. Shanema, like the pasuk here continues and says, Im yismameya, if his coming is delayed, chakaloi, await for him. Now, Shem b'toimar, if you may say, Onu mechaken, we await the coming of Mashiach, but for who, Einu mechaken, the Eibusher does not await this time period. Talmud Loimar, so there's another pasuk that says, L'chein yechake Hashem l'chananchem. The Eibishter waits to show you His grace. L'chein yodem l'rachemchem. He wants to lift you up to show His mercy for you. Now, v'chi me'achar she'anu mechakem. If we are awaiting the coming of Mashiach, v'hu mechake, and He Hashem awaits the coming of Mashiach, mi ma'akif, who's holding back His coming? Midas adin ma'keves. The Midas adin holds back the coming of Mashiach. Now, so if the Midas Adin holds back the coming of Mashiach, so what are we waiting for? This is the Eibishter lengthens the Golus in order for us to have more schar. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Ashrei kol choichiloi. Fortunate is the ones that await the coming of Mashiach. Okay, so this whole Gemara here that it talks about the kitzin of Mashiach. And the Gemara here says, Teipach atzma shel mechashvei kitzin. So it's already spoken about this in the Rishonim. The Rambam speaks about this by Riches, that even after the Gemara over here says this very strong expression about not to make a ketz for Mashiach, but the Gainim after this, and the Rishonim, the Rambam himself writes a ketz, and many Gedolei Yisrael wrote about different kitzin. So the Gemara here says, Teipach atzma shel mechashvei kitzin. So the Rambam himself already says that the pshat is, like the Gemara here says, if there's a ketz that will discourage Yidden, which will cause to take away them one from Yidden, that's a problem. But if it's a ketz that was needed for Yidden in a time period that they were very fallen and low, and the ketz is only going to encourage and lift them up, then that's a positive thing to show a ketz. It's one point. Another point regarding all these kitzim that it says over here in the Gemara is, all these kitzim is a true Inyan. It's not that it's a ketz that they said and they made a mistake. A ketz means that it's a certain time period which is mesugel for Mashiach to come. Not only it's mesugel, it's actually a time period where there was a certain breakthrough of an Inyan of a ketz. There's the famous story that the Tzemach Tzedek, that he said that Tofresh Ches was said to be a ketz, and Mashiach didn't come, so they asked him, "No, so where's Mashiach?" The Rebbe Marash asked him, so he told him, "But the Likutei Torah was printed that year." That's an Inyan of a coming of Mashiach. What's Mashiach? A godly revelation that comes through the printing of Likutei Torah, which brings Pnimiyus HaTorah into the world. So each ketz is actually a certain thing that's it's fulfilled on a certain level. Right? So that's what all these kitzin are all about. There's a word that the Rebbe says in the Sikha in Chelik Chavtes, Parshas Devarim, Shabbos Chazayin. There the Rebbe says that the Gemara says Teipach Atzman shel mechashvei kitzin. If one is just making a calculation, on that the Gemara is saying this negative expression. But the Gedolei Yisrael, they saw. They didn't make cheshbainis. They saw where the world is holding with the kiyam hatayra and mitzvahs and the level of godly revelation in the world. When they see it and they share that with Yidden to explain to them what their Torah mitzvahs is accomplishing, that doesn't fall into the category of what the Gemara is talking about over here, and that's what the Gedolei Yisrael spoke about. Amar Abaye, the last point over here. What was the last point we just saw over here? The Gemara said, Ashrei kol choichei loi. So this is the Gemara which is expressing the idea that when the Yidden are in Golus and the Yidden await the coming of Mashiach, that itself is the Aveda in Golus and Befrat and Ikvis of the Mashiach that brings more schar. That will bring the revelation of the Gula to be even greater. Amar Abaye said, Loi pochais alme mitlosim v'shita tzadike. In connection to the pasuk that I just brought before, where it says Ashrei kol choichei loi, fortunate are the ones that are hope for him. So the word loi, the Gemara now darshans that the world never has less than 36 tzaddikim. These are the 36 hidden tzaddikim in the world. The Mekabli apish china b'chol dara, they can be Mekabel, they can receive the Eibishter himself in every generation. Shanema, this is the pasuk here where it says, Ashrei kol choichei loy. And loy b'gematria tlosim v'shita hava. This is the 36 tzaddikim in every generation. But the Gemara asks in this, Eini, is this true? V'amar Rava. But Rava said, Dore the kame kutshe berichu, the row of tzaddikim that is in front of Hashem. How many tzaddikim are there? Tamni sari alpha havoy. It's 18,000. That's much more than 36. Shanema, because the pasuk says, Saviv shmeinasa aleph, that around Hashem there's 18,000. So how could you say, this is, Rashi says, in Yerushalayim Shel Mailo. That's what the pasuk is talking about. It's a pasuk at the end of Yecheskel. And it says, the Gemara like Kashya, it's not a contradiction. Ha, the mistakli baspaklari ameire. There are those tzaddikim that can see in the great light of Hashem, that they see clearly. Spaklari, to be able to see with clear vision. Ha, the mistakli baspaklari she'ein. And then there are those that see, but they don't see so clearly, and that is the 18,000. But the one that see clearly is the 36. And even in this Aspaklari Amira, there are different levels to this, because there's another place in Gemara where it says that only Moshe Rabbeinu can see Baspaklari Amira. So that's only Moshe. So there are different dargis in this inyan. But the Gemara asks on this, so Minifisha Kulahai, are there so many tzaddikim that see Baspaklari Amira, 36, but Va'ama Chizkiya, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mishum Rav Shimon ben Yochai, Re'isi, B'nei Aliyah, V'hei Muatim. There are those that are on a very high level, and they're very few. Im elefheim ani yabanamehem. If it's 1,000, it's me and my son that are from them. Im meyahem, if it's 100, so then ani yabanamehem. It's me and my son that are from them. And im shnayim, if it's only 2 of them, ani yabanahem. Me and my son are from them. So what do we see over here? That it's very few. So the Gemara answers like Kashya. It's not a contradiction. Because Hada Aili Bebar, there are those that are able to enter, to be in front of Hashem, but only with permission. And for those that have to have permission, and then they can see Baspaklari Amir, but only with permission, so that's no less than 36. And Daili Beloibar, those that enter without permission, so that we don't know exactly how much there are, there could be even much less than 36. Omar Rav, going back to what we spoke about, the Kates, the time of the coming of Mashiach, so Rav said, and this is the famous expression the Gemara says, Kolu Kol HaKitzin. All the times of the Kitzin that were said are already passed. Now it depends on us doing tshuva. If you didn't do tshuva and ma'asim tovim, then he comes. Shmuel says, no, it doesn't depend on tshuva. It's enough time for the oval. According to one pshat, it refers to the Eibishter that's mourning and being in his mourning. It's enough, and Mashiach will come even if Yidden do not do tshuva. Another pshat Rashi says the oval refers to Yidden. The Yidden that are mourning and are experiencing this pain and suffering from Galus, that it's enough and Mashiach will come even if Yidden will not do tshuva. Says the Gemara Tanoi, this argument between Rav and Shmuel, so the Tanoim argued about this. Rav Eliezer says, Misra loisun tshuva nigolen. If Yidden do tshuva, they'll be redeemed. Vim lav, if they don't do tshuva, ein nigolen, they will not be redeemed. Amalei Rabbi Yeshua, but Rabbi Yeshua said, Im ein loisun tshuva, ein nigolen. Elo, if Yidden do not do tshuva, then they will not be redeemed. So is Rabbi Yeshua saying, Im ein Yisrael oisen tshuva ein nigolen? Okay, sorry. Im ein oisen tshuva, if Yidden do not do tshuva ein nigolen, the Yidden will not be redeemed. Ella, rather, what's going to happen? HaKadosh Baruch Hu maimed lehem melech shegzereis of koshes kahaman. The Eibishter will bring a king that will rule over Yidden, that will be very difficult decrees, just like Haman, and then the Yisrael oisen tshuva. And that will force the Yidden to come and do tshuva. That's Umachzir Lamutav will bring them back to the good. That's one version of this machlokes. Tanya, in another brayso we learn, Indach, and a different brayso we learned, Rabbi Eliezer says, Im Yisrael is in Shuva Nigalim. If Yidden do Shuva, they'll be redeemed. Shanam, the pasuk says, Shuvu Banim Shivavim, the Yidden that are going around shall come back and be returned and do Shuva. Erpa Mishuva Seichem, and then I will heal you through your Shuva. Amalei Rabbi Yeshua, so Rabbi Yeshua says to this, but Valek Var Nemar, the pasuk says, Chinom Nimkartem. For no reason, you have been sold, and v'loy bekesef tagalu, and not with money will you be redeemed. What does the pasuk mean? Chinunim karta means b'avedas kachavim. Yidden did things for nothing, just avedas zara. That's nothing. That's why they went into galus, and therefore v'loy bekesef tagalu, and not with money, which refers to tshuva, will you be redeemed. Loy b'tshuva or ma'asim tovim. So here Rabbi Yeshua says that you don't need tshuva ma'asim tovim. Mashiach will come even without the tshuva of the Yidden. So now here the Gemara is going to bring, here in this Braise, it brings a whole discussion from many different psukim back and forth regarding whether the Gula depends on Tshuva or not. So Amalei Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yeshua, so Rabbi Eliezer says to Rabbi Yeshua, but V'alei Kfar Never, the Pasuk says in a different place, Shuvu Elai v'ashuva Eleichem, return to me, and then I will return to you. So we see that Mashiach comes only through Tshuva. Amalei Rabbi Yeshua, but V'alei Kfar Never, there's another pasuk where it says, Ki anaychi ba'alti b'chem, I rule over you, v'lekachti eschem, echad mi'ir, shnayim mishpacha, I take you one from a city and two from a family, ve'evesi eschem tzion, and that I bring you to Tzion, to Yerushalayim. So it means the Eibishter rules. The Eibishter brings whether Yidden do tshuva or not. And the Eibishter will choose the tzaddikim to come, and even if not all Yidden will do tshuva. Amalei Rabbi Eliezer, so Rabbi Eliezer says, V'alei Kfar Never, but there's another pasuk that says, B'shuva v'nachas tivashayin, that with tshuva and with nachas, when Yidden will be low, meaning when Yidden will be humble, that's when they will be helped, and the Eibishter will redeem them. Amalei Rabbi Shua Rabbi Eliezer, but V'alei Kfar Never, there's another pasuk where it says, Koyamar Hashem Goy Yisrael L'Kedoshai, Eibishter, the Redeemer of Yidden and the Holy One, he says that Livzoi Nefesh, the ones that their Nefesh was disgraced, and Lemis of Goy, and the ones that the Goyim turned them into being abominable, Le'eved Moishlim, the ones that the Eved Moishlim Melachim, that kings ruled over them, Yiru V'kamu Sarim V'yishtachvu, they will get up and they will bow down. So you see in this pasuk that the Eibishter comes and redeems Yidden, that the Goyim are disgracing them and embarrassing them, even if Yidden do not do tshuva. Amalei Rabbi Eliezer, so Rabbi Eliezer said, but V'alei Kfar Never, the pasuk says, in Toshav Yisrael no Hashem Elai, Toshav. So then, if in Hashem Elai Toshav, if Yidden do tshuva, then Elai Toshav, Yidden will come back to me. So that's only if Yidden do tshuva. But Amalei Rabbi Yeshua says, V'alei Kfar Never, the pasuk says, Ve'eshma se'ish levusha badim. I heard a person that was wearing badim, Asher Mimal, comes from Mimal Meimei HaYa'ir, above the waters of the Ya'ir, Vayarem Yeminu Yismael HaShamayim, and he lifted up his right and left hand to Hashem, and Vayishba B'chei Ha'ilam, and he swore in the name of Hashem, Ki lamoyed moyedim. There's the time periods, V'chatzi, other half a time periods, Okechachlois, Nofetz Yad Am Kadosh, or Am Kaidesh, Techlena, Kol Eila, and then this will end this time period. The pasuk here says, "Kachalais nipetz yad am kaidesh," the time period when the Yidden will be very strong. Techlana kalela, this all will end. Meaning, when it'll be a time period, and the strength of the Yidden will be low down, and the Yidden will suffer many tzaris. Then will be the time when Mashiach will come. So this is the pasuk that Rabbi Yeshua brought him that shows that it will come even when Yidden will not do tshuva. And then after he brought this pasuk, v'shasak Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer was quiet, and this proved that Mashiach will come even if Yidden will not do tshuva. Now, regarding this Gemara here, this discussion about whether it's Tali and Yidden doing tshuva or not, so the Rambam, though, is famous, the Lashon of the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva, the Rambam paskins, like Rabbi Eliezer that says, in Yisrael eis and tshuva miyad ein egalin, that it depends on Yidden doing tshuva. So the Rambam actually does paskin that it has to be with tshuva. And
you could answer miyad ein egalin.
The what? Miyad in Egalin, correct. So the Rebbe spoke about this Indian, and it's also in a Maimer from HaChodesh. We're coming to this week is Parshas HaChodesh. There's a Maimer from HaChodesh, Tavshin Lamed Hey, where the Rebbe spoke about this Indian, and there the Rebbe brings that Tzemach Tzedek says that this machlokes is between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, whether Yidden will be doing tshuva in order for Mashiach to come, depends also on the machlokes whether B'Tishrei Asidin Ligal or B'Nisna Asidin Ligal. If it's in Tishrei, that's with tshuva. If it's in Nisan, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, that it's without tshuva. And the psak din that's always brought is that B'Nisna Asidin Ligal. But on the other hand, it says dafka with tshuva. But it's going to be a different type of tshuva. It's going to be a tshuva that relates dafka to Nisan. Why? Because we're talking about the tshuva of ikvisa de Mashiach, which is a kind of tshuva where a person senses that it's not about Maya Veda at all. Because in the time of ikvisa de Mashiach, where you didn't have no mitzias to themselves, they're so bottled because of the low time in the generation. And Yidden are doing tshuva, like it says before, melach kosher, that it could, not only in the negative, but it means that the Eibishter brings Yidden to do tshuva that's not based on their mitzias at all. It's a higher, completely different level of tshuva, and that's why it comes miyad hein egalin. That's the way the Rebbe explains the Sinyan, how these two concepts go together. Okay, should we take it from miyad mamish?